This is a great occasion today, and we are welcoming you to the panel discussion on riding the wave of digital transformation, brought to you by the Economic Times and by Kissflow. Thank you all for joining us, all the panelists who have come here today and sparing time for us from the busy schedules, and for all of you who are joining us to attend the session. My name is Alokesh Bhattacharya. I'm senior editor of the Economic Times. I will host today's discussion. We have a very strong panel here today for a talk on digital transformation. Let me just quickly take you through a preliminary introduction. We have Krishnan Venkateswaran. He's the CIO of Titan Company. We have Avanti Banerjee, Chief Marketing and Digital Officer of Tata Capital. We have Ashish Gupta, Chief Technology Officer of Max Bupa Health Insurance. We have Neil Miller, Director of the Digital Workplace Alliance. And we have Suresh Sambandam, CEO of Kissflow. Thank you all, gentlemen and lady, for joining us today. It's a great occasion. I'm very excited to have this panel today, because it actually allows us to look into digital transformation initiatives and insights from leaders of three different industries, consumer lending, health insurance, and consumer products. And it's always good to have an interplay of insights so that we can all learn from each other. And that makes it very, very exciting. I think just to set the context, the big difference, as we all know, between the COVID-19 pandemic and the earlier pandemics and epidemics that happened 100 years ago and earlier, is the internet, right? That is the primary and the main big difference, and digital technologies. These technologies and the connectivity, they have allowed us to continue to live life despite the pandemic, almost normally. So we have been, practically teleported into a futuristic world where there is no physical contact. Everything is done virtually. You're meeting, you're studying in school, you're doing your job. Everything is being done remotely, like we are discussing here today, right? You don't have to go to a hotel to listen to this discussion. You sit at your home and your laptop. It's seen from the future. In fact, I was telling a friend today earlier, and I was discussing with Neil also offline just before this, that notwithstanding the tragedy of the pandemic, not to put that down in any way, but in a sense, all of us are fortunate, to be alive at this moment in human history, when we are actually witnessing a tipping point of humanity. There is an irreversible cascade of technological preeminence in all walks of life, right? There is no doubt now. Earlier, technology used to be even in February, before the lockdowns and all hit us. Technology used to be this exotic thing. Yeah, okay, some guys are doing it really well. At some point in future, I need to think about what I should do. But today, everybody wants to know, what are we doing in technology? Because we know that without that, there is no business, no life. So that has also meant big changes in how businesses operate, right? Huge changes in how businesses operate. So we have been saying, like I was saying, all these years, that companies that don't do digital, they won't survive in the long term. That long term has shortened dramatically now. There's no long term, right? You don't do it now, you're dead. You have to do it now. So what this pandemic has also done, because of this survival thing, is that it has made digital a CEO level and a board level agenda, which always we said that it should be a board level agenda. Digital must be a board level agenda, but it was not, you know. But now it is. So earlier the top management would leave all things IT to the tech team, but now everybody in senior management wants to know, how can technology be used to help their functions work better? How can they drive more productivity? So technology today is really driving business strategy, and even new revenue streams are being identified through digital tools, which is a huge difference from what it used to be. Today, you don't need to tell a CEO or a chairman of a board that they should look at digital technologies as a force enabler. They know it, right? You don't have to tell them that anymore. That is a big difference. However, more than the senior leadership, it is the employee that needs to buy into your digital vision. You need to make it work for your organization. Every employee needs to believe what you're saying and participate in your digital initiatives. Otherwise, it's not going to work, right? So that actually increases the responsibilities of the tech leadership. Because tech leadership is now no more just a tech leadership, right? CIO, the CTO, the CDO. You are now among the senior management and the strategic leadership of organizations. And because what you say will determine how a company will operate and how a company will move into the future. And that really is what the future is going to be. So, a couple of years ago, I keep doing these panels, right? So I was doing this panel, I think in 2017. There was a panel of CEOs of large organizations, and there was the CEO of a very large apparel company. I will not name it. And that gentleman had told me that, listen, this, $5 trillion economy target was there at that time also. So he said, of this $5 trillion GDP target that we have, 1 trillion is going to come from digital. So at that time, people laughed at him. Yeah, yeah, 1 trillion. कहाँ से आएगा? It will no way is going to come from digital. But now we know that it is, and probably more. So, for example, according to a BCG report, the digital lending space, the space in which Tata Capital operates, the digital lending space itself will turn into a $1 trillion opportunity in the next 5 years globally. That's outstanding, right? So lots of exciting things are happening, and we have panelists here who can tell us exactly what is going on at the ground level. What are the changes that they are shepherding? What are the things that they see happening in the future? But before we dive into the discussion, I first would like to invite Suresh from Kissflow to give his opening remarks and set the context for the discussion. Suresh.
All right. That was wonderful, Alokesh. Thank you very much. And welcome everyone for this webinar and panel discussion. Very, very elite and eminent panel here. Thanks everyone for coming in. So I sort of want to start off with two famous cartoons that were strolling us about the digital transformation, right? And one of this,
This is
probably
really good, Suresh. This is amazing.
yeah.
Who led the digital transformation?
Yeah, so this is, I think most of you would have already seen it. If you haven't seen it, this is literally one that all of us laughed out loud. And the other one that actually made me think about it is this one, actually, right? So digital transformation is years away, right? And then COVID-19 comes in, and then it just happens happens like that in a snap. So these are the two famous things that was going on during the COVID times. But before I go into more serious topic, let me give you a little bit background about who I am and what is my background and my company. So I am Suresh, and I'm the founder and CEO of Kissflow. It's a digital workplace. We are a platform company. We have customers in 160 odd countries, literally globally. Every single country where there are people, I think we have customers. We are a 100% digital company, born in digital, sell digital, support digital, market digital. Our software is digital. So we don't have offices in any of these places. We have only offices in Chennai, and we have some presence in the US. But otherwise, it's literally truly globally operated through digital technology. So we have some really big brands that use our software, like some of this but even in India, our 90% of our customers are in international. We have 10% customers in India, and these are some of the customers who use our software in India. We are actually a leader in the business process management space as per G2 Crowd. We are also featured in Forrester and Gartner. Okay, so let's jump straight into the DX 2.0. So, what is DX 2.0, right? Really speaking, it's not that many of you who joined this panel and also in the audience, right? It's not that we are not doing digital transformation. We are doing digital transformation in a particular, slope, right? And we are at a juncture which requires a different inflection point, and that inflection point takes the curve in a completely different angle. So there is something that we need to do radically to shift the curve that is a 1.2 curve into a 2.2 curve, and that's really what I mean by digital 2.0, right? Classic example is this particular chart in China. You can see the chart in terms of downloads of work related WeWork chat, WeChat work applications before February, and then you can see the huge spike in February, right? And then when when it settled down, there was a consistently 200,000 to 300,000 download that has been happening on a daily basis. So that is amazing progress in which people are trying to figure out how to do remote work and stuff like that. So the speed at which people are trying to adapt to this new reality is enormous. Now, when we talk about digital transformation, there is really these three phases. There is this digitization, digitalization, and then there is transformation. right? And that's very important to sort of understand that digitization is basically analog to digital, right? And digitalization is about automating all the processes. It will focus on productivity and incremental innovation and stuff like that. But the transformation is essentially a complete change in mindset. It's a style of leadership. It's like how they say, like web first or a cloud first or a mobile first architecture. The digital transformation is actually a digital first mindset, right? Starting from leadership, culture, mindset, and actually speed to value. It's a completely different way of thinking about everything. So that's really very important to sort of understand. It is all the more important because by 2025, 75% of the entire workforce, right? We are talking about the entire workforce is going to be by millennials. That means these are already guys who are born in digital. That means that this demographics is going to further accelerate this whole paradigm. So last year, just before COVID, we actually did a huge conference in Chicago. It was a big conference. We were a platinum sponsors along with Slack and Citrix. And we had really, really top executives who come into this, global executives, like 450 people from the best of the companies in the world who attended this conference. And we asked this question to them, right? What are your organization's top 5 priorities in terms of your digital transformation and the digital workplace, right? The first one is digitization and process improvement. And then the second one came as knowledge management. Third one is about culture and change. And I think this is a very, very important takeaway. The big takeaway here is there is tremendous amount of process improvement and digitalization that is still, we have backlog. And COVID is actually putting a lot of tailwinds behind this, right? And IDC actually published this famous report where they are talking about the next leg of a digital transformation journey, that is basically the digital 2.0, is actually the notion of empowering employees in the front line of the business. Basically, employees who are at the edge of the business, whether how they can actually participate in this digital transformation and be, contribute to this and take it to the next level. So that is really what IDC was saying. So, and we know COVID actually proved and showed us the digital divide, right? Those companies which were able to invest it in digital, they were able to flourish. And the companies who were not embedded, who were not invested on digital, had floundered and scrambled to the new reality. What has changed radically is the approach to work, the construct of workplaces, the notion of physical workplaces, the need of digital talent base, right? So fundamentally thinking natively digital. And then a lot of tech purchases also has become outcome based. So all of this, it also means the benefits also pretty straightforward, right? This was a recent statistics that was published. By embracing digital transformation at a digital workplace, we are looking at 52% increase in productivity, operational efficiency by 40%, and increasing customer experience by another 46%, right? Now, with that background, if you really look at it, the enterprises, they have something called this long tail, right? And this long tail got seriously exposed during this COVID-19 phase, because there are a lot of generic processes which is common across many industries and verticals, and that's where people buy the ERP, CRM, and all of this stuff. But outside of that generic piece of technology and software, there is a long list of processes that are very specific to a company, very specific to a industry and stuff like that, right? So those things are not in digital, and they got exposed, and they are running on legacy systems like Excel and all of that stuff, right? So all of those got exposed. So that is the thought which I wanted to leave with you, and I just wanted to take 2 minute advertisement and talk a little bit about Kissflow. Kissflow is a digital workplace. It's a single unified platform which allows you to coordinate, collaborate, and control your entire business across teams, geographies, and departments. We have 6 modules in the product. It's a low code platform, which means we can build applications without programming and coding. It's a very, very easy to use platform. We have a process management capability. We have case management. We have project management. We have collaboration, and we can integrate with any systems out there within your enterprise. So the most easiest way to do is, you have been buying a lot of software as disparate systems. Kissflow brings you a unified platform, a single unified platform, and also it automatically gives us a tremendous amount of cost advantage. So we have really big companies using our software, like Reckitt Benckiser, for example, is one of our flagship customers. They're a global top 10. They have 73 processes automated in Kissflow. They are like 10,000 users. They use around 34 countries. They integrate with so many different enterprise systems. And we have McDermott, which is a big oil and gas company, which is a Fortune 500 company as well. They have 96 different processes running on Kissflow. We have 15,000 users using that across 25 different countries. And lastly, we have a company called Sealed Air, which all the bubble wraps that you do, which is made by worldwide. It's the largest company in the world which makes that. Again, they are a Fortune 500 type company, and they have 89 different processes running on Kissflow, 6,500 users across 30 countries. That's all I wanted to say. I don't want to take much time here, and then open up to Alokesh, and let's have the conversations flowing from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Suresh. That was quite a nice opening statement from you. In fact, I found, apart from the cartoons, which were like really good, the China graph was also quite insightful. I thought that it actually showed us that even after things settle, the remote working and the remote tools, like, the collaboration software, they're really going to be at a far higher level than they were pre-COVID, right? So that while they will not be at the peak during the lockdown period, but
Correct.
they will not come down to,
Yeah.
they're not likely to come down to pre-COVID levels even after everything settles. The other interesting thing that I found in your talk was about the process improvement, and the fact that most people are still talking process improvement even after so many years of digital and technological, process automation that has been happening. It is interesting. I wonder how much time it will take us, to move into true value-added stuff like, finding new revenue streams, or even finding good choices for M&A opportunities, right, through digital tools. Where are the synergies that lie there?
Yeah.
That's the next level that I'm really waiting to see when that's going to happen, and hopefully it'll happen soon enough. A quick note to the audience: while my team has been putting in messages and telling you all that, if you have a question, put it in the Q&A tab, and depending on the time, we will ask some of your questions, and we might even try to bring some of you on camera so that you can ask the question yourself. So you better remain dressed for the occasion. Yeah, you don't have to put on a coat or anything, but at least don't come in your banyan, okay? So just, we might just spring a surprise on you. Okay, so now let's get to the panel discussion. We will just start with a slightly broader and a slightly strategic kind of view. If we look at how digitalization strategy was before COVID, there has been a, not just, we are talking of transformation, but the transformation of the strategy of digitalization has also transformed, right, from what it was before COVID and what it is now. And so I'd really like to hear that from the panelists as to, what are you doing now that you were not doing before? And perhaps you could illustrate that with an example of any radical initiative in these months, that you have undertaken that have impacted your digital transformation journey. And I'd really like to start with Ashish, because health insurance is the thing to look at in this panel, right? When we are talking about COVID, and health insurance should have shot up like phenomenally, right? And people
Yeah,
are all
that's
scared. They must be really running after you to get that insurance policy.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Good standalone health insurance are today for new business anywhere between 80 to 100% growth rates on their top line. So yeah, that's true. Touchwood, this period has been a bit kind to us, notwithstanding again the global tragedy. But for our business, it's been kind. I mean, look, it's what we are doing is fairly straightforward. If a truck of money came in and just opened up and money was flying everywhere, what would you do? You'd kind of run and grab that money. So that's exactly what has changed with COVID. Earlier, we used to go pillar to post saying, hey, let's digitize this, let's digitize that. Can you support us? And today, it's all incoming. So I think the pillars of strategy haven't changed. The pillar of digital strategy have always been higher revenue, lower cost, better customer and employee satisfaction. I think the pillars remain the same. And I don't think it's true just for digital or digital in COVID. It's true for any business metric that you pick up. So I don't think the pillars have changed. What's changed is the acceptance. There's been a really strong tailwind. And I'll give you an example of a dramatic transformation. So obviously, one of the biggest things we do as in health insurance is pay claims. So you go to a hospital gives you a bill, you kind of send those bills, and then we pay those bills. Today, we get everything paid digitally, right? To the extent that that index of paper has moved from zero of non-paper transactions on claims has moved from 0 to 92%. That's how dramatic it's been. Similarly, on the customer acquisition side, you used to have all of these forms that used to be filled, and then people used to digitize, and then they used to type wrong, and people used to say that, my name is small enough, but with larger names, you know what happens, right? Both offensive and very, very counterproductive. Now everything is digital, so the customer confirms all the details. If any detail is wrong, it's corrected even before the issuance of policy. So everything is happening digitally, and we've moved from something like, I don't exactly remember the figure, but something like 45% digital acquisition to again 90+% digital acquisition. And this is virtually no credit to us technologists. We've just been able to use the opportunity. But the market's changed, the adoption's changed, and that makes for some dramatic interventions. And now I'll tell you, it's not just these first step activities, as was earlier being talked by Suresh in terms of the steps of transformation. It's not that we've just made a process and made it digital. It's that now, since the process is already digital, we are excited about building stuff like rules engine. So we're building a really mega rule engine that basically says that claims can be adjudicated automatically. And if that happens, you make a claim, you get the payment in like 15 minutes, right? That's the ambition. Right now, that can be done. Earlier, it wasn't done because the paper used to take 2 days to come, and then used to punch it in, which used to take time again. Then somebody used to verify, take that paper, see the script, and kind of verify it. All of that has gone out of the window. So now what we are saying is, why can't we take this one level further and actually automate the claims end to end? We've already done it for this year for our underwriting. So for our flagship product, Reassured this year, if you go into one of our agents and they fill up your form, the underwriting is actually automated. So that's where it is. It's the adoption that's changed, not really the pillars of how you take a decision.
You expect this adoption to maintain this trend?
Yeah. So now from here, there is no option, right? Because you've seen a wonderful world. It's like you've driven a Ferrari. Would you really go back to a Maruti 800? You won't, right? So people right now, our agents are sitting at home, talking to customers, converting sales. Who will want to go in the 50-degree Delhi heat to home, knocking down doors, and then being told that the customer is not available? So I think this is here to stay. We've seen this globally. Like if you look at digital consultations, medical consultations, OPD consultations as a metric, that number's gone up dramatically. And everybody was worried that when COVID subsides, what will happen to the numbers? We have colleagues in Spain, UK. That number hasn't come down. So once the adoption happens, once you've gone to a better world, you don't go back.
Yeah. I would love to have a Max Bupa health insurance. The only thing is that I don't know what I'd feel if I have a chatbot named CIA talking to me, So I'm wondering what was behind that name that you gave your chat voice. What does CIA stand for?
Very good question. Actually, even I don't know the answer to that.
Right.
It actually is something. It's just a name. It's a small name that we wanted to keep to make it sound like
but CIA. I'm going to be a little suspicious.
I've got an intelligent assistant. Customer intelligent assistant.
Yeah,
customer intelligent assistant.
No, I'm just
something like that.
But yeah, I've gotten what Alokesh was referring to quite a bit. I think it also makes for a good conversation having CIA behind you. But but that's one of the things.
Nice, very good. Thanks for that insight. I'll come to Abonti. Lending is such a sentiment-driven business, and sentiment, if anything, has gone south like nobody's business since the lockdown has hit us. So, has digital transformation taken a backseat because in your organization, because the sentiment, you need to fix that first and assure people that no, you can still borrow, or has your digital transformation, journey continued the way it was before? What is the difference now? And anything special that you have done in these months?
Sure. So, Alokesh, a couple of things. First, let me start by saying that in the financial industry, unlike some other industries, the industry itself was in a pretty mature state of digital transformation. If you look at it holistically, of course, there were some who were ahead of others. But if you look at the industry as a whole, and if you compare it to some other industries, say textiles, for instance, some of the other manufacturing industries, overall state of digitization was far higher. Be it the customer uptake, be it the willingness of the customer, be it the platforms that are available, say for payments in the country, which are way ahead, of all global payments, be it the regulator who have been very agile. So it was in that state to begin with. What the pandemic has done, of course, has accelerated, but accelerated from a high, rather than from a
Okay.
low. What you're saying about sentiment, yes, I think in the first 2 months, there was a lot of uncertainty, I would say. But subsequently, with the regulatory interventions coming in and liquidity becoming better, I don't think that sentiment played such a role. I think that most of the industry went back to their pre-COVID level kind of disbursements within July, August, as was the case for
Okay.
us.
Okay.
And therefore, whatever investments we had made in digitalization, of course, proved very, very advantageous. Like Ashish described, it was, a huge gain. And for instance, to quote our numbers, we were steadily growing. We had already made these investments, over the past year. So we were steadily growing in terms of customers who preferred the digital channels for servicing, for instance. And we had grown that number, say, from a 15-20% to a 50-55. But when the branches shut down, that was obviously 100. Similarly, in terms of onboarding and getting customers onboarded, like you would know, the lending industry still is distributor led for some proportion, and the
Yeah.
distributors, again, like Ashish was describing, would go, though we would give them a tablet, or a mobile based app on which to onboard, they would still visit. Now overnight that model changed to a telephonic plus an email kind of an exchange or a platform
Right.
exchange to get information. And that was adopted in days. Gone were the days where we had to do multiple trainings and then implore them to use it and then publish MIS to see who was using and who was not. Overnight everybody was using it because that's the only disbursement that they did. So yes,
Mhm.
it certainly shifted things in terms of usage. But I would say that,
Anything
frankly,
radical or
the
different you did in these few months that you have not done before?
what I just described, one of them was, of course, the entire distributor onboarding process, which we, substantially changed to make it more amenable to a non-contact kind of a meeting.
Right.
And that saw a dramatic uptake. We already had invested in pods and in servicing. Those also, again, saw a lot of lift. Uh, the other part, which became completely electronic, digital, whatever you call it, was a recovery part, right? So recoveries and debt servicing, moved away from the physical world, and there again, we introduced a whole lot of payment channels so that during this time, and it continues in mortgages, for instance, about 97-98% of our recoveries are digital today. So
I
I
also
think it,
believe
it
that
changed in.
you are creating self-serve options for your customers across all points. Is that correct?
That's right. They existed, Alokesh. So for the retail side, for instance, we too have a bot, and the full form also I know. It
I
is
hope
called
it's
the
not
Tata
CI.
Capital Intelligent Assistant. It is called TIA,
Okay.
and TIA helps out everywhere. So be it on our app, on the web, or through WhatsApp. So customers today, like you and me, in our regular life, we use a lot of technology, right? We are on WhatsApp. We used to book movie tickets once upon a time. Hopefully,
Yeah.
we will soon again. So customers are used to a lot of technology, now. So most of the servicing in that sense, with the self-serve options, they moved to it. We introduced servicing on Google Assist, on Alexa. I think we were the first to do so. And customers are far more amenable because they're used to Alexa. So they're quite okay to take their loan statement on Alexa. So
Right.
all of these, were small innovations which helped.
Yeah, I also saw in your annual report that in 1920 your portal grew some, 6 times over the previous year, right? And your
That's right.
app
That
had
just
more than a
shows you,
million downloads.
how comfortable people have become with coming online. And if you look at Google Trends, it would tell you that almost all the searches for lending would start online, even if they end somewhere in
So
offline
can we
mode.
safely say that
But
these nine
almost
months,
100%.
that 6 times growth that you saw in 1920, in these 9 months, that would have multiplied many times more also?
Yes, it did, but I think the growth multiplied in terms of recoveries, in terms of servicing, and when there was a total lockdown, of course, 100% of whatever was getting done was in fact digital.
Yeah,
So it was an exponential growth.
fantastic. It's good to know. I'll come to Krishnan Venkateswaran of Titan. Chris, good to have you here. And I'm wearing a Titan watch, by the way. I love Titan watches. Always add that.
Excellent. Mm.
It's my favorite. This is the one that I use for all my webinars. It looks cool. So, Titan, I've been reading up on your company, and it's quite amazing the kind of digital initiatives that you've taken. You're almost a digital company, if I may, say that. And congratulations to you for having done that. But have you faced, real challenges in this transformation? And because of COVID, have you seen your systems holding up? What you created before COVID, have they held up? Have you had to make some major changes? Any radical transformation initiative that you had to take?
Yeah. So we have started our journey several years back happily. So the first cartoon in Suresh's presentation happily doesn't hold for us. And as my co-panelists have also said, it doesn't hold for them either. So that's good, right? What has changed, like we rightly discussed, is customer adoption and comfort with digital. And I completely agree with Ashish. There is no going back in several aspects of digital engagement. So just to cite one use case where we actually significantly invested, we see customers coming onto our platform, creating a wish list, booking an appointment in a store which is near them. So instead of a pleasant 90 minutes browsing in a Tanishq showroom, which used to be the case, people come for a more efficient 20 minutes, 25 minutes, asked to see the products they have shortlisted, choose one. Payment is contactless. I mean, I think many webinars have already covered all those areas, so there's no need to touch upon that aspect, right? The payments architecture in India is fantastic.
Yeah, that is
true. Very easy to switch on. But the entire experience is now a hybrid of digital and physical, right? Unlike Ashish and Abonti, my company is primarily a physical products company, like you just showed what you're wearing, right? And the experience of the product in the store with the visual merchandising, the lighting, the courteous service, I mean, we certainly do not want to become fully digital. We believe that the combination of the digital and physical experience is the best that we can offer. You look at jewelry, watches, saris, absolutely hybrid categories. But we have been able to create that seamlessly melded experience by which customers can come onto the website, see excellent digital representations of our products, engage with a store colleague. So we have actually rolled out video calling across all our stores and of course centrally as well. And our store colleagues actually have transformed themselves from folks who are able to talk across a table to folks who are able to talk on a video and present products, right? And it's not exactly the same when you're trying to show a beautiful necklace on a video, right? It needs
I've seen some quite scary videos on Facebook of people trying to sell products.
That stuff, I mean, all of us keep receiving that stuff, but that apart, you need to master the digital medium, right? In order to be able to know how what you're showing appears to a customer who is sitting in her home and probably seeing it on the mobile, right? So that transformation and the helping of our store colleagues to achieve that well has been one of the big efforts we have taken, right? Secondly, being able to engage in live chat with many customers who are now landing up on our website. Our website traffic has shot up tremendously. Okay. And so therefore being able to engage with customers on live chat, that's been perhaps the one significant change that we have done. But otherwise, our transformation journey was on well before COVID.
Yeah.
And in response to customer adoption, we obviously accelerated a few areas. But
yeah, I was also reading up, that you are actually trying to get people to try on jewelry and eyewear virtually.
Oh yes, virtual try-on for
how
eyewear
can
is
try on
early
jewelry virtually? I'd like to know that.
Both jewelry and eyewear, our websites support virtual try-on, right? And we hope
like
early in the new year to launch full bridal.
Suresh?
Is it a AR technology?
Is it AR?
Yeah, augmented reality. That's right. Virtual try-on, right? So hopefully in Jan, we'll launch a facility by which you can actually visualize yourself as a bride, wear a Tanera sari, and put on multiple layers of necklaces and every other form of jewelry which a bride would like to wear, organized by community. And obviously, once you create your wish list, that list is there in the store, and then you can go there. So,
I think the next big unicorn is going to be a company that actually suits you for a Google Meet or a Zoom session. You
I know.
click saying, I want an Armani suit, and you can sit in your boxers and you still look like you're wearing an Armani suit. That'd be cool.
we already are piloting it. I mean, we have seen our colleagues wearing Tanera saris. So, thoda adjust karna hai, but ho jayega.
Fantastic. It's fantastic. In fact, coming to your point, Ashish, that day I was seeing somebody was sharing something on WhatsApp, and I just saw that this kind of a meeting, that we're having here, you can actually, that the software is being built that can show you actually sitting across the table and talking to each other.
Yeah.
Even though you're still in a virtual mode.
That's the big challenge, no, Alokesh? You make all of this trial software and work from home continues, and people are only buying the digital version of the sari and not the actual sari.
No, they'll order it home, yeah. Aisa nahi hai, isn't it?
But you're right, Ashish. To expand on that point, the creation and maintenance of desire for companies like ours in the lifestyle physical product space is actually the biggest challenge, right?
Correct. That's very much.
Take apparel companies, for example. Big challenge.
Actually, previously, we can't say no to a marriage. Now people are conveniently saying, we'll send you a digital wish and we just stay at home.
But how are you seeing the walk-ins back, Krishnan, into the stores? How has it been?
Walk-ins
like the
have
financial
increased.
Industry, it's not gone back really. It's remained digital. But
in fact, I'd like to share a stat. Thanks for asking. Between the Dussehra to Diwali period, our jewelry sales this year have actually grown over the corresponding period of last year.
Wow.
And how much of that is from your store directly?
Most of it. See, what we're talking about digital is really influencing and streamlining and enabling our customers to make a perhaps much more efficient visit to the store, right?
Okay.
But during the festival season, the number of customers who landed up at the stores were obviously far in excess of the customers who chose the digital route, right? So,
is it because they have been locked up in homes and they took
whether it's pent-up demand or not, the coming few weeks will tell, right? I'm not the right person I would rather defer to my CFO on these matters. But the fact is, I think the world has to see whether festival demand is pent-up demand or whether it's a clear recovery, right? Today I saw some news report talking about global surprise at the extent of India's recovery, but that's probably a separate topic for a different forum. Right? But fact is, watches came back to almost last year's levels. Jewelry exceeded last year's levels. And most of it was store visits.
Fantastic to know that. And in fact, let me come now to Neil and Suresh. Neil first and then Suresh. Basically, of all these things that are happening, it is ultimately because both of you are involved with digital workplaces, right? How do we enable the digital workplace of the future? What are the technologies that you should be looking at? Are these three examples, leaders that what they told us about what they're doing in their organizations would not be possible without the buy-in of their employees, and if the workplace is not enabled digitally enough, right? So perhaps you could, Neil, you could tell us a little bit about, what are the things that companies should be doing, to get into a proper digital workplace so that the business side of it can also be enabled equally.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And a lot of what Mr. Krishnan and Ashish and Avanti have shared are great examples of how companies have transitioned to customer facing, have that digital transformation that has come through there. But at the same time, I love the question that Ashish, you were asking about, why can't we take this one level further? That question is rippling across the whole organization. Like, all right, we saw what we can do for customers. Now, what can we do for our employees? And what can we do actually in the workplace? And that's a big question that a lot of times they say, okay, we have all this as a consumer, I can go in and I can look at what a watch is going to look like, but still as an employee, I still have to fill out all these paper forms and all sorts of different things. So we're seeing the same kind of digitization that comes in and the same kind of requests that come from employees as consumers that they come in. So I think one of the themes that we're seeing is that we talked earlier about the physical nature of the office. is going to be more like an add-on feature. So like your core, I think this digital first approach is going to keep rolling out, keep getting bigger. And the function of the office of where we're coming to work is going to be more like, yeah, it's there, it's a feature you can use, it's going to be great, but it's not going to be the core of work. And for a lot of companies has always been this way, but I think we'll continue to shift more towards a digital nucleus of saying, hey, here are the core tools that you need. Maybe 15 years ago, you gave an employee maybe a laptop, and if they had a laptop, it had email, spreadsheets, word processing, slides. That's pretty much all they needed. Now, today's workers need a lot more tools than that. They need to figure out how to be able to manage projects that are coming in, how to automate processes, how to interact with each other and collaborate in a better way. So a lot of these technologies that you're seeing in the workplace are changing in the same way. And we're seeing that digital first approach. But also we say digital first and human centric, saying that we have to consider the needs of the humans that are working for us. And when we adopt technology, it's not just for the sake of adding something new, but it should really be driving something, and it should really be putting humans at the center of what that workplace looks like.
So what would you say would be the, if we are to say that two or three things that companies should take as, sort of the flagpoles of a strategy for the digital workplace, what should they be?
Definitely, you're going to want to think in two terms, in terms of you want to have something for work management, and you want to have something for collaboration, and how you can meld those together. If you can find something that does both at the same time on a single platform, it's great. When we talk about work management, we're talking about how you actually get things done, project management, process management, case management, those types of things that can all be built together. And then collaboration is more like how you discuss work that's coming in. And typically, we've seen the big acquisition of Slack. Slack's a great example of a collaboration platform. Typically, email you're going to see as a collaboration platform, but I think more digitally mature companies are seeing email as a way to interact with external people that are a part of your organization, whereas internally you need something different, something a little bit faster, something that can work better in terms of how you collaborate with each other. So as digital leaders, we need to be thinking in those terms about what are the tools we're giving people to actually do their work, and then what are the tools we're giving them to collaborate around that. And again, like other things, you don't want to say, okay, on your onboarding, here's the 20 apps you have to figure out how to use to work here. But rather, if you can limit those, find platforms that can do multiple things, that's a better option.
Right. Thanks for that, Neil. And Suresh, if I may ask you just to add to what Neil was saying, this we are a country with limited capital, right? And when companies invest, they also need to think very carefully about where they're going to put that money in. After the pandemic, of course, people know that you have to put in money into technology, and you need to also enable your workforce and digitalize your workplace to be able to derive the maximum benefits from digital technologies, right? So, as an expert, because you are always advising and consulting and telling companies what to do, in these areas, give us some insight into, what kind of technologies should companies be looking at, and what is the approach? Should they think of the technology first, think of the workflow first? Can earlier workflows be adapted to the newer technologies? Do they need an overhaul, right? How do you create a digital transformation in the workplace?
Sure. No, I will also, before I go on specifically address that, there's one thing which I wanted to talk about. You asked everyone, what is the one or two big things that have happened in your companies during the COVID times? I think I'll also take 2 minutes and talk about that in
Of
Kissflow.
course, please.
We went completely remote, right? Maybe it is quite possible for us to do it. We asked all our employees, in fact, even to go back to native places, because we have a very young population. Average age in Kissflow is like 26 or 27, right? And many are even bachelors. So we invented a model called Remote Plus, which means 3 weeks they can work anywhere from the world, right? They can even go to go to Kodaikanal or go to Darjeeling or have a sit there and work. And then 1 week in a month they need to come to office as a team. So we split the entire company into four cohorts. And roughly in a month we have 4 weeks, right? So every week one of those 25% of the company will be in the office, and we put them together in relatable groups. which means all our bachelors and even sometimes even people who are from native places, they're still married, but then they said, you know what, I'm going to go back. One of the case studies was like there was a guy who always wanted to work in Ooty, and he actually relocated to Ooty, and he got an admission for his school kid, and his kid is joining there. So this actually we believe very excited about this personal transformation inside our company. This remote plus model of which we have embraced, and it has produced a tremendous amount of benefits for us. We actually thought initially there will be like a 20% dip in productivity, but I think we have anywhere between 20 to 30% increase in productivity after we switched to this remote plus model. In fact, we are facing people are not able to take work off. I think they're not able to shut them off, because once they're hooked on, they don't have anything else to do at home, and we are figuring out ways to sort of unplug them from the work. So this is something I wanted to say. I think this is a very radical thing that we have done.
Indeed.
So coming back to the specific question, I think more than technology, and I don't want to use technology and push Kissflow or anything like that into anybody's mind, but I would actually say, I think there is a paradigm shift in thinking that can help digital transformation to take a completely new level. That paradigm shift is, can we empower the business? There is a huge talk that's been happening for 15 years about business and technology alignment, right? But then I think it's not just no longer about alignment. Can we even put business on the front of the show? That means that today there is technology that is available. So today, look at how things are getting digitized or automated in the enterprise. Somebody has a domain knowledge, which is oftentimes the business, and they need to spec it out, document it, give it to maybe IT or somebody like that, and then somebody has to. IT may have resources. They probably find a partner who can actually do it for them, and then implement. Go back to the business, validate, test, roll out, and things like that, right? So there is a huge cycle, and there is a huge paradigm that has been established, and we have been following that paradigm for quite some time, right? But today there is technology that is available for IT and the technology folks to provide that platform for the business, so that they can directly transfer their domain knowledge into working digital systems. That means you are cutting across a huge amount of iteration, right? In fact, they will be, if business starts doing some of these things themselves, they will make reasonable and meaningful compromises which otherwise they would not be willing to make if they give it as a spec. For example, if you give me a spec and then I do something and come back to you, you will tell me, hey, I asked this button to be exactly here. Why is this button here? And you will nitpick on every single thing. And if you are basically the one who is designing that, just like say, for example, that form or whatever it is, then you know why you have designed it that way, and you are quite contented with it. So we have seen tremendous amount of transformation that happen when we are able to empower the business. Not everything can be done this way. Let's also be very clear, right? We cannot take everything and adopt in this paradigm. But this paradigm can be adopted for simple to medium complex business processes that doesn't require a huge amount of technology knowledge, but it requires a huge amount of domain knowledge from the business standpoint. If this paradigm can be adopted, there is another 10x of benefit that business can achieve, right? So that's really, and IT can be a great winner, right? They can be like a big champion by championing this. So that's really my view. Meaning, I don't want to say so many things. This is only one point I wanted to say, and that's all I wanted to say for that particular question, because that will make a huge impact, because it's a paradigm change.
Great. In fact, that's very, very interesting. And I'll take the workplace question to the other panelists also. But before that, we want to run a poll with the audience. We have 200 people here, and we're all experts and senior people in their own areas. So Nidhi, can we please run the first poll? Only the audience can participate in this. Everybody, please give your vote. We'll wait for a few seconds. What is the biggest roadblock in your digital transformation journey? Change management seems to be a big area. Let's just wait for a little more time. The biggest roadblock in digital transformation journey, most people say it's change management, 54%. And that is very closely followed by proof of ROI and lack of digital talent and experience, right? And lack of unity in adoption comes a little below. I think there are technologies now that can bring in those unity, in different kinds of tools and different kinds of unstructured data, and also can be now put together. But yeah, change management is a big issue, and we will come to ROI, and we are already talking about the workplace and talent. So Neil, you want to throw some light on this on the change management issue, as the biggest roadblock in somebody's in an organization's transformation journey. So how does one address change? Is it more a cultural issue, or is it something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely would be a cultural issue of figuring out how can you, even from you're talking about top leadership down to the frontline employees, like how can everyone really adopt these types of things? A lot of times it's trying to, I mean, initially it was trying to convince leadership that we needed to adopt these types of things and put them out. Now that issue's been set. Like, even if we say like there's limited means of how we can adopt these, if your top leadership is not willing to invest in digital tools, like that's a bad sign. And I think everyone needs to be at a place where we can adopt it. So now it's more about, okay, how do we make that shift? I'm seeing that a lot with a lot of the interviews that I do with CEOs, that it's not that they don't see the value in it. It's just that they don't necessarily want to jump into it. They say, we've always been an office-centric place. Our culture is so great. Everything was going well before the pandemic. We just want to get back to where we were going. And if you're we're in that space where, okay, the pandemic hit and we were all had to be remote for a while, and we just are in this holding pattern trying to get back down and trying to get back to the way things were, then that's a real challenge for a lot of companies, and it's a really difficult place to be. But the companies that are really excelling at this are the ones that were maybe forced, or we're prepared for it ahead of time, but we're forced into a much higher level of digital adoption. And once they got there, they asked that question, how can we take this further? How can we make more of our meetings digital? How can we have better meetings? How can we look at more of how we're measuring productivity and change that? How can we look at how our leadership operates and change that? So it's really that mindset change of being willing to see the native advantages of digital and not to see it as a hindrance or something, okay, we're forced to do this. And once you get enough, that critical mass of employees and leadership that really do believe that this is a better way, kind of like, yeah, we're driving this Ferrari now, we don't want to go back, then change management becomes easier.
Yeah, in fact, and you said, companies who have done it ahead of time, they fare better on this, and now they're thinking how to take it to the next level. All the three companies who are present here on the panel today would answer to that description, right? So I'd really like some quick views from all three of them. Chris, from you first, on how you dealt with the change management challenge.
No issues.
No issues at all? Wow, that's interesting. That's the shortest answer I've had to a question in a long, long time.
Titan is a very
actually, I must actually acknowledge the Wi-Fi industry, right? Our telecom industry colleague.
Telecom industry, yeah.
Wi-Fi didn't break down, right? I'm sure that experience is shared right across the country, probably across the globe. Very few folks working from home actually had an issue, even with 3 family members connecting and probably one of them watching Netflix also. Right? So there was no disruption. And so to that extent, I think one must commend the industry for having actually provided to every home what was being promised. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
There have always been those theories around what is actually connected at the home versus what we are built for. But I must say that we did see the adoption of meeting technologies like this was overnight. What's a big deal, right? And standard protocols, etiquettes, I mean, again, no big deal. We are among colleagues and folks just learned how to connect. And like I mentioned before, the change management was really in seriously upping our own digital connect with our customers. But again, we had been doing that for quite some time. We knew how to do it. And so our retail store colleagues learned pretty fast how to connect with the customer on video and showcase products See, let me give you an example. You have a panel in a store in which a watch is beautifully lighted and so therefore presented well. But when you're showing it on the screen, the dial might catch the light from somewhere, and the customer seeing the video won't even see the dial, right? Just a minor example of what you need to think of when showcasing a watch on a screen. Yeah, I can see that you're trying to display yours. Good,
No,
thanks.
I'm not. I'm only showing the strap, not the watch.
Exactly, right? But that's my point. So these are the things which we had to learn being a physical products company.
Yeah. Of course.
And likewise, I'm sure Ashish would talk about
Yeah,
e-underwriting,
I was going to
e-claim
come to him.
settlements, having
Ashish, you
their
want to
own
tell us about your change
all
management
dynamics,
efforts?
right? But
So completely with Chris on this, and I'll allude to what I said earlier as well. I don't think change management was an issue at all during the COVID period. If anything, it became easier. Everybody knew that it was a ticket to play, a survival time. So you needed to be digital. You needed to be able to use your mobile phones to punch in applications rather than write it on a form. I think if anything, change management's become much easier than it used to be in the pre-COVID era. That not to say that that hasn't led to its own set of challenges in terms of productivity and all. We in our head office we have these MPLS line that give you 10 GB of speed, or actually more than 10 GB of speed in our head office. And at home you're sitting on a few Mbps connection lines. So these heavy files that come in are hard to manage. So there are lots of operational issues, fragmentation of workplace, simple things like the crash when a laptop crashes today feels a lot worse than when a laptop used to crash earlier, because earlier you would take the laptop and give it to the IT guy and say that, hey, just fix this goddamn thing. Now what do? The laptop's crashed. The only way to digitally fix the laptop was the laptop itself. So you have these massive operational issues, but I wouldn't refer to any of them as change management issues. I think change management issues are out of the window. I think there weren't many naysayers, as Avanti pointed out earlier, that many people had adopted digital far before COVID. Even if there was some remaining, no longer.
Avanti, what about you? In your organization, did you face resistance from your employees?
No, Alukesh, I cannot disagree with Krish and Ashish, because I think what they're saying is completely what happened here too. Because see, there was no intent to not be part of what was going on, right? There could not have been, because I think as a race, as humans, we sort of all rose to the challenge, right? So things like logging on and doing what you had to do had to be done by everybody. There won't be anybody who sort of would challenge that and say that I want to do it in some other way, and why are we doing this? It wasn't a time like that at all, right? All of us tried to put in our best, and that's true for all colleagues. I think that it is more operational, like Ashi said. We all organizations would have the odd blip where somebody's laptop is not reaching, somebody's not able to join, and there would be a bunch of connectivity issues, and there would be some important meetings where critical people are not able to be heard. But these are all operational challenges. They are not lack of intent to do the best in these times. I think one challenge which is not change management but is a real challenge is new joinees, and remote leadership, and leading and training the team completely remote during these months where they have not really interacted with too many people in the organization. They've not really met their stakeholders and peers face to face. That I feel is posing a little bit of a challenge as we move on and we are in the 9th or 10th month. And while physical working is there in some offices, but I think that we still have to learn how to get people in more smoothly, make them feel part of the organization, and get them up the learning curve. Tools and aids will help, but I think human connect was still a very important link in that. That's
On
one
that
place
point,
which I feel
yeah.
that
On that point, I'll actually say something interesting that I have noticed. I don't know if it's true for many organizations, is that our traditional hierarchical approach is also being torn apart a bit. Earlier, you would value a person depending on how big his seat or how big the cabin was in the office. That's actually going away. So now that whole hierarchical approach to approach a senior manager and then go to the mid manager and then go to the final developer, I've seen a lot of just straight interactions happen between business and the end developer, and that's actually a big boon for everybody. So while I do understand what Abanti is saying, I think there is a bit of a challenge in terms of inducting new employees. I think there's a flip positive side to people treating everybody as genuine equals these days.
Sure, and I think we learn, Ashish, to be a little more structured in the induction process. The induction process are not geared for this, right?
Yeah.
So they will also become geared for this over a period of time as we do, more than half the work remote.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is a great example of what we talk about in terms of like the digital transformation affected like these digital tools, but now we realize, well, the whole work operating system needed to be updated, like how we approach leadership, how we approach hierarchy, how we approach onboarding, like the influx of digital tools has made us rethink those things. And that's a really important thing for not just the chief digital officer or chief technology officer to handle, but everyone needs to start thinking, wow, we need to rethink our approach to how we're organized, to how we collaborate, to how we look at productivity. And that's a great chance. And I think that's what we're really going to see out of this time is a lot of companies looking internally and updating their other systems, not just the technology tools they're using.
Fantastic. We have been getting a few questions from the audience, so I'm just going to try and get one person in. And he's got a question for Krishnan. And Shrey Tandon, can we have him live? Nidhi, can you just put on his camera? Is he going to talk to us?
I am here. Thanks, Alokesh.
Can see you. Can you switch on your camera?
Yeah, just a second. Just need to put my specs on.
Sure.
Yeah.
We can see you without your specs.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to make sure I see everyone. But thanks a lot for
please introduce yourself
question.
and ask your question, Shrey.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so I'm Shrey Tandon. I'm a part of the Coursera team and amazing discussion around digital transformation. My question is for you, Krishnan, right? And I'll quote a Gartner report which said only 10% of the organizations actually claim to realize their investments in technology, right? Because of the onset of employees, and are they able to look at the future and sort of actually realize the investment at the ground level? So is there anything from your perspective on how you're enabling your set of employees in that direction?
See, the Gartner stat, let's leave aside for the moment, right? But I think all organizations have their own process to judge the benefit from any implementation of technologies, right? One thing we have been seeking to ensure, or I should say two things, because they're actually, one is convergence of systems, right? Integration. And that may be natural for financial services, right? But it's not natural for a retail company because you'll have a manufacturing system, then you'll have a store system, which is a POS, then you might implement a CRM, and then an e-commerce engine, and you might just lose sight of the fact that they all need to talk to each other. It's quite possible, and does happen. So we have taken care of data quality and convergence very carefully. And so therefore, we are actually, I may say, reaping the benefits of that. Okay.
Right. Thank you, Shrey, for your question. And what I would like to just, Nidhi, we can, and Chris, what I'd just like to ask also is how, in the light of this question from Shrey, how have you, sort of tuned your employees to ensure that they are also in line with your thinking?
See, we have been users of technology for several years now. Our core systems were implemented 2 decades ago. We started on the SAP journey in 1990 something, right? So we have been in that sense automated for very long. Our customer-facing digital transformation also started several years back, and so therefore our e-commerce engines, etc., were all in place. And like I mentioned, we took great care to ensure that the ERP, the CRM, the e-commerce engines all are connected. Our customer loyalty program has been on for 7 years now, and we hope to close this year with 20 million customers who have registered with us as Encircle customers. I hope, Alokesh, you're also one of them, right? So
I have this proof.
There you are.
We have another question from another person.
So a combination of these things is really where the game is. Right? It's not just one solution by itself.
We also have with us Dinesh Kumar Prabhakaran. Dinesh has a question for the panel. Dinesh, introduce yourself, please, and let us know what your question is.
So, hi, I'm from the city Coimbatore and working as product manager at Kissflow. So, hi, Krishna, I have a question. It is how the digital transformation is within the manufacturing sector, the workshop where the watches and the jewelry are being made.
Good point.
Okay. Thank
Jewelry
you.
being our larger business numerically, I'll address that first. Even today, the best pieces of jewelry have to be made by hand. Okay. It is the craftsmanship of the expert which really creates that piece. But having said that, we have again been automated in our operations for quite some time, right? We have robots working and we have various pieces of elements of IoT implemented. But jewelry by itself, if you look across the supply chain, a great deal of it is manual. And so therefore our automation has been really in supporting processes, something like what Suresh was talking about, right? The ERP, the BPM, connecting our external partners with us, and of course the billing and the invoicing and the standard commercial process. But the heart of manufacturing in jewelry, no. In saris also, no. We actually take pride in the fact that our saris are handmade. That's really our tagline. Watches has been automated for very long. Right? If you see our assembly line, it's a pleasure. Right? And the testing of a watch before it goes out to the market is also automated. So while we are moving towards Industry 4.0, because of the pandemic, obviously, a break, certainly not a stop. We are on the journey, but the extent of automation is different for different businesses. Right? Eyewear, on the other hand, is highly automated. The manufacturing of both lenses and the spectacles, but the fitting of the glass to the frame is still manual. I mean, that's the way it is across different.
That's the trick that we need to master next.
And I'm sure my co-panelists will confess to total automation. I'm sure, right? It's digital money after all.
What we'll do now is we have two more polls. So we'll go to the second one now. So Nidhi, can we launch the second poll, please? All right. So the question is, the top digital need of team leads in my organization is, and there are some 4 options: simplified collaboration options, no code or low code platform for automating workflows, easy project management tools and metrics, employee engagement metrics. What is the top digital need of team leads in my organization? Let's see what our audience has to say. I can see quite a close contest between all the 4 options now. Okay. You get to see it when the thing ends.
The polls are pretty tricky. People don't know what to choose sometimes.
Okay.
I think the change management was a very easy one. People say, oh yeah, I know change management. That is
but I'm quite surprised, and it's quite interesting to know that while the audience thinks change management is the big issue, all our panel says, yeah, change management, no big deal.
Because, that's like when you're writing the exam, no, you know what is the right answer, kind of a right. So people know, okay, change management is the right answer. Okay, let me select that.
Okay, so we're waiting for this. Okay, can you see the results?
For companies like Titan, and Max Bupa and Tata Capital, they are like tier 1 companies, right? So they are going to be leading in terms of technology and digital transformation.
Correct.
And people management. I mean, these are all like star perform. These are the people everybody has to look up to. So I think it's no surprise these folks are on top of the chain, right? So definitely.
Yeah. Can you see the poll results?
Yeah, we can.
What's it for you, Abanti? Between these 4, there seems to be a close contest between all 4, even though we can say that the first and third are sort of neck and neck.
It looks like people can select multiple options because the percentages are not tallying.
Yeah, they can select multiple options because there can be multiple needs for an organization.
So it looks like simplified collaboration tools and easy project management tool. That's really what this is.
I guess it would be the first and the third for me mainly.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's Ashish?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is actually not the option. Please don't change the spec after we take the project live. I think if you ask all of my tech leads, that's the one that you're going to get. That before, don't change it after it goes live. But that's on a lighter note.
But that is where you need a low code, no code platform. You can keep changing it as many number of times you want. Sorry for
Fair point.
But Neil, I'd like to also understand from you, if you look at these four options and you interact with so many organizations, which of these do you find most resonating the most in your conversations?
The most pressing one that people feel is the collaboration one, just because there's so many communication channels these days. Like when people say, "Hey, I sent you that," it's like there's 5 options, there's 10 options. Where did you send me that? And a lot of this is not going to be solved by more technology. It's going to be solved by the systems we use and decide, okay, yeah, when we're sharing things, we're always going to use this platform, or just kind of saying, hey, we can't be having conversations in 6 different places. We have to know where those were and where they are. So I think that's one of the most pressing problems I'm hearing from people is that collaboration is just a Wild West game right now, and there's just so many options, and every tool you use has some way to talk about it. So trying to find a way to get a better contextual collaboration so that you're talking about the thing right where it's happening is a good option. But really, this is about organizations kind of setting some rules, and really not even organizations, but individual teams saying we're going to use just this platform and this app for the collaboration and the communication aspect.
Right. What about you, Suresh? Which are the themes between these that you find resonating the most, in your conversations with other organizations? And also, would you say that digital transformation is changing the way people work, or is it the other way around?
But meaning, I would say mostly collaboration, definitely, because I think it's a number one choice that came up, and I will agree with that. Partly because although we use the word collaboration today, like they've not been more than it's mostly communication that happens in collaboration. If you go to Slack, for example, it's basically a very powerful chatting messaging system, although it has some integrations through Slack bots through which you are supposed to achieve the collaboration. But the 90% of things that happens in a Slack is actually communication.
Right.
But what people really require is contextual collaboration. What is a contextual collaboration is that's why they really want that. For example, I have a ticket or an issue. Somebody filed an issue. I don't want to go to Slack and then say, hey, what happened to this issue? And then copy paste that URL and post it in the Slack channel. And then say, hey, can you give me the status for this? This is what really happening today.
Okay.
But what really people need when they talk about collaboration is, I am on a ticket. Can I do at mention? Let's say Neil has to work on it or Ashish has to work on it. Can I say, Ashish Gupta, what is the status? I don't want to go to a Slack channel. And then, go find Ashish Gupta and copy paste that link and then ask for status. And when he replies to that, I don't know what he said. 3 days later or, 2 weeks later, when I go back to that ticket, I don't know what was the conversation happened because that conversation happened in Slack.
Right.
Not having that history there. So this whole disconnect between, although people use the word collaboration, what they're really doing is communication. So there is a need for transforming from communication to real collaboration, because the word collaboration so much is abused and there is a specific context that has been set. I'm using a new word, which is contextual collaboration, to differentiate from, because I can't change the meaning of collaboration now because it's already set in everybody's mind. I can go and say, no, what you're doing is collaboration, is not collaboration, it's communication, nobody will believe me. So if I use the word contextual collaboration, that's really what is needed. And that is what a digital workplace is supposed to solve. Because you don't need to go switch between so many tools, between project management and your approval management and your issues and collaboration tools. But if you can bring all of them together in one single unified piece, you would actually achieve tremendous amount of collaboration. And that's really what users are wanting to. When they say collaboration, that's really what they want.
Right. Very good point. In the collaboration software, collaboration options need to be further strengthened by default. Definitely, there's no doubt about that. What I'll do right now is I will bring in another audience member to ask a question. His name is Venkateshan Ramaswamy. He's the director of Shrestha Services Private Limited. Venkateshan, welcome. Thanks for joining our event. You have a question around security, around cybersecurity, risks related technology adoption. And of course, we all know that most of the cybersecurity risks come from within. Correct.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for this opportunity to ask these questions. And by the way, great discussion, lots of learning. Thanks, everyone. There are two questions from my end. Can panel hear me?
We
Is
can
it
hear you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Go ahead.
Okay,
It would
the
be nice
first,
if you can shorten your questions and
right. First question
and
is
give them.
like, yeah, there is a big transformation happening digital wise, which is great. Same time, to same extent, there is a security risk threat too. So what collective action we as an industry or experts we are taking to reduce these security risks? Second question, like we use single-use plastics. Because of that, today we are facing big challenge in negative impact to the environment. Similar way, there might be a lot of single-use data or the technology which we are using, and what type of collective action we are taking to make sure that future negative impact is not there for our environment. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Venkateshan. Okay, can we have some answers for him from the panel, please? Want me to
Sure,
repeat?
let me try.
Yeah, go ahead.
Speak on question number one. One of the things we have done in our team is that InfoSec is a gatekeeper, right? And so we are willing to actually sacrifice a bit of agility if the InfoSec team puts up a red flag. I will not get into investments of technologies. That's a separate topic by itself. We have board level and leadership level approval to implement what is appropriate. And we have never lacked for funding. I'm happy to say that. But it's more the behavior of the digital team and obviously the combined team that is seeking to launch new initiatives and capabilities to ensure that the InfoSec team is appropriately empowered to even stop something. And we have done that. So I think that's really the key. The rest of it is expertise, understanding of policies and processes, and understanding risk and agility trade-offs, right? And obviously the layering of the architecture to ensure that not all your systems are exposed to the internet if they don't need to be, and so on and so forth. Those are mechanics. I won't go there. Intent is very important. So I hope that answers the question.
I can actually just take that one fraction step forward. So completely in sync with Krishnan. The only additional step that we take forward is that it's not about the InfoSec guy coming in and blocking something that's wrong. Actually, any change that impacts the front end that is exploitable from common internet is actually approved by the InfoSec before it goes live. So in our process, everything that is not approved by the InfoSec actually doesn't go live. And that's the kind of gatekeeping we do. And of course, security is paramount. And I mean, insurance is a data-driven industry. Your consumer data is paramount. So you do put in automation there. So for example, I mean, a lot of companies would have it, but I'll just repeat for Venkatesh, is that, you know, we have, for example, if somebody were to take out customer data for some analysis and send it to an email which was outside the domain, that will actually get automatically flagged. Every email going out is scribed for personally identifiable data. It's a DLP system, nothing too fancy. It's a fairly straightforward tool that a million other companies use. But you know, the investments in security are paramount. Whether in the COVID era or before, it's always been the case. In the COVID era, there's just this one layer more that people are working. People with access to great data are working from home. So that's another thing that has to be protected. So your USB drives are, your databases, your laptops are actually encrypted. Your USB devices are rendered useless. Stuff like that. But those are just small items on top of what was always being done.
Fantastic. And his second question is on single-use technologies. I mean, as large organizations,
I'm not sure who will be willing to call any data single-use, frankly. Given the extent to which ML is being employed for predictive analytics, it is very difficult to dismiss any data set as useless.
Yeah, I am with Krish. Maybe not on the data side, but definitely single-use technology is a big issue. We have a tendency, because there are these timeline pressures, we need to deliver within 10 days. Somebody writes a piece of code, and that code is usable only for that specific use case. And if that use case fails, then that code is lying in garbage somewhere. It happens to the best of us. Right. So I think one of the things that we've been trying to do, and I don't know how successfully, is to look at things and development as a platform approach. and not really as a product approach. In a platform approach, when you build something, the intent is to reuse it again and again. So I'll give you an example. I talked about the underwriting. I talked about the rule engine very briefly. Now, the rule engine we built for underwriting is the same infrastructure that is going to be used for claims, is the same infrastructure that's going to be used for web services. So what you've built is a platform called Rule Engine, which will service underwriting, claims, customer services, maybe something else going forward. So you do it as much as possible. I don't know what the environmental impact is, by the way. I don't see any environmental impact, but it definitely has a big P&L impact and go-to-market impact. So that is something that we definitely like to focus on.
So environmental impact in terms of like where is it stored? It's stored on some hard disk that you don't need anymore and you're just throwing it out, right?
See, you have to wonder whether all the Garba videos on Facebook right now are single use. So I think that's actually a much larger problem.
Yeah. That is true. Thank you so much, Venkatesh, for your questions.
Thank you very much.
You really added a lot of value to our discussion. Thank you for coming and asking. So Nidhi, can we now move to our final poll for the day? That also will give us hopefully some very nice insight that we can now discuss. The third poll. You can see only after the poll closes. The question is, how do you measure the ROI of digital transformation? And the options are increase in overall operational efficiencies, time saved, or number of processes digitized. Number of processes digitized, time saved, or increase in overall operational efficiencies. And the increase part is very, very heavily on top at this point. And obviously you measure ROI in multiple ways. So this is also a multiple choice question. Despite that, the first option is running away with the honors as of now. And the moment the poll stops, you can see the result. But you might want to just firm up your thoughts on this, on how do you measure the ROI of digital transformation? And I'll come to Neil and Suresh with how should you measure the ROI of digital transformation?
So are you asking me?
I'll come to you.
Sure.
Okay, can you see the results now? So the increase in overall operational efficiency takes the top vote in terms of how people in the panel, in the audience today, think they are measuring the ROI of digital transformation. So Avanti, can you tell us what is your view on the measurement of ROI? What metrics do you use? Do you use any of these at all?
I feel there can be only two measures. One is it has to impact your cost in some way or your revenue and thereby your bottom line. Otherwise, the rest are all sub measures, frankly. So it will either have
you can measure. Can you really measure how effectively can you measure how it has impacted your bottom line?
I think you can now pretty effectively, because if you're doing something, say on the operation side, you're basically measuring productivity, right? And the moment you're measuring productivity, you're basically measuring the savings in cost, which is then directly impacting your bottom line. Similarly, if you're measuring revenue, again, it's a direct impact, right? So at the end of the day, I think the measure is only on cost and revenue. Of course, before that, you have to measure things like increase in productivity, time saved, more disbursements done, more number of cases done. But all of that should translate into a very quantitative measure, which actually hits your bottom line. Else, I feel the whole team and the organization will lose interest. And that will become even more important now because there'll be a much more laser sharp focus on cost and on productivity overall.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, your view on this?
Revenue comes far ahead, actually.
Okay.
Right. Because costs, by and large, are in a multifunctional team's control. It's within your own space, right? Whereas being able to engage with customers, attract them to you in a competitive situation, and convince them to engage and then to buy is really where the much larger game is for all organizations that are engaged in selling a product or a service, right? And for example, if you had focused on internal process and not launched our e-commerce and our customer-facing analytics, let me tell you a stat which we had shared last year. We have a test and control method of measuring our revenue uplift from digital analytics and campaigns. And last year, we were able to attribute 800 crores to analytics-driven uplift. So we keep a set of customers who did not receive a particular communication, understand their buying behavior versus the customers who received the communication. So we have a very systematic way of tracking this, and we were able to actually report a generally agreed number across all our businesses of 800 crores. not a small number, right?
No, not a
And there's
small number at
there's
all.
no way we could achieve that kind of number or the contribution of that top line through, let's say, internal process efficiency improvements. So for us, very clear, customer connect is really where we invest the most in digital transformation. Having said that, we are using BPM and RPA tools quite effectively internally. I'm sure my co-panelists also are championing them. And the efficiency measurements are fairly straightforward. It's no big deal.
Yeah. Ashish, you feel the same way?
Yeah. Hardcore engineer. I never did my MBA. So I don't understand some of these fancy value creation, addition, and all of that. For me, it's a mathematical exercise. Slight nuance. Instead of revenue, I always count gross margin because revenue is tricky. It gets bloated.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it bloats up very quickly. So the formula for ROI is very, very simple. Incremental gross margin plus cost saving divided by the total cost of the investment into doing that initiative. It's very, very mathematical. And if you cannot, my opinion is very, very brash and blunt on this. If you cannot compute this, don't start that project. Because number of processes, I can digitize 500 processes. In the time that we had this conference, I could have probably done at least 100 processes digitized with zero value to the company. I think it's not about the number of processes. It's not about time saved. It is not about anything else. If you're investing into something, it should give you a penny P&L impact. Now, the only caveat I make is that we all understand that not every project can be monitored in hardcore financial numbers, like customer satisfaction, NPS score that we all trace, it'll eventually lead to a bigger revenue number, but you can't directly draw the correlation. So you may multiply this factor by, let's say, 1.3, 1.4, saying if my ROI is 70%, then I will treat it as 100% because I know 30, 40% non-measurable benefits come in. But that's the degree of play you have, plus minus maybe 20%, 25%, 30%. But if your projects are not at 70+% ROI, mathematically proven, then I think you're in deep trouble. Because I'll tell you what happens. If you don't do that, then you've made the success of a project subject to opinion. You may do a project that is fantastic, and the CEO opens it one day, and his login doesn't work. 999 million people logged in, and that worked. That one CEO doesn't work, and trust me, your project will be deemed a failure, right? So I think you've got to be able to move your ROI matrices and judgment of projects beyond a shadow of doubt. And the only way to do it is, as Abanti and Krishnan said, clear revenue cost saving targets.
Right. Okay. I'll, we are over time, but I will just end this question. I will take Neil and Suresh's views on it.
Just say one thing to Ashish's thing. Ashish actually nailed it really well. But one more thing is, there is it's always about value, and there is one thing we talked about as speed to value. Like, for example, that 70% can come in 6 months versus 70% can come in 3 months. That changes the game. Right. That is the speed to value metric. So right, ROI, that formula, he did it beautifully. But in add speed to that formula, it's icing on the cake.
Fantastic. Neil, are we missing anything here? Are we missing the human aspect of the ROI? Are we only going to look at this through mathematics, like Ashish and the others are saying? Is there any other angle?
I mean, definitely, like, revenue should be there and the gross margin should be there, but oftentimes, like you said, it's a lagging indicator. It's what we see many times, like Suresh said, it may come months or even years afterwards. And even when I look at it from the internal part, that's where I focus most of my time, about how your employees are feeling this. There's also a sense of some of these digitization efforts are just table stakes in terms of when a new person comes to join your company, there's going to be certain expectations. So yeah, there may be zero value to the company in digitizing something, but if somebody comes in new and they said, hey, you got to fill out these forms, you need to stamp this thing, you need to send this to this person, they're going to say, where am I working? Like, what era is this? And so there's some amount of that. There's going to be an expectation, just like there's an expectation on the consumer side. There's going to be an expectation in terms of talent, hiring in people, that you want to give them that experience. So that's there. And this is also a time too, that because so many companies are going to have this kind of threshold of where they are digitally, that it is also a good time to take some risks and try some new things that maybe aren't going to have a direct ROI right away. Because like I said, the field is pretty much everyone's come up at the same place. So now it's time for the leaders to take those risks and try something which may not have a direct ROI right away, but it may lead to something else later on. So I agree with what everyone said, but maybe adding in that one bit about being willing to take risks and going beyond about what's expected.
That's a very good point. And with that, I come to you, Suresh. For your view on this, I knew you added to Ashish's point on the speed, but you have something else to say about measuring ROI. You can always.
I don't have anything. I've already said.
You can sum up today's discussion and deliver the vote of thanks, and we can conclude.
I think I want to keep it short. I think it was wonderful meeting everyone here. I think Alakesh, I want to start with you because you made it so fun, interactive, and all your Titan watch, gestures. I think you are giving free publicity for Titan all the while. I think.
No, Titan is right here, so he doesn't need my publicity.
I know, but still, any publicity is companies always need publicity.
801 crores now.
Yeah, 801 crores. Yeah. Yeah, I think you did a fantastic job. I think thanks.
Thank you.
And Ashish and Abanti and Krishnan, very, very insightful experiences. In fact, these are role model companies, right, in India. And
Absolutely.
Talking about digital transformation to these companies, the reason why they are there in this panel is because they set the tone for the rest of the folks in the country to be able to follow and then get benefits. I really enjoyed it a lot. Thank you very much. I appreciate all of you coming on board. Thank you.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thanks.
Nice meeting you, everyone.